Right, welcome to episode 27. I've got my apples ready to go. This weekend is the weekend of Routemaster 70, which is taking place up at the former Chiswick Works in London. Instead, I'm working on this RT, which is at least 10 years older than that. The RTs were delivered, the first ones were delivered just before World War II in the 1930s. And then obviously a little skirmish, World War II, stopped the construction of the RTs, and then they got back in earnest once the war had finished. So the RT design is quite an iconic bus in many respects. So this weekend, hopefully I shall get on with a little bit more painting. The weather is beautiful out there. It's really nice. It's going to be a very hot day today, which is great for painting. So I hope to do the remainder of the cab seat frame, paint that black. I'm going to paint the brown on the floor of the RT because I think we've got to a stage now where I can sort of do that now and it's not going to risk too much damage. I've got a little bit of wiring to do. I've got to trace some wiring through some conduit. That should be fun because it's really quite intricate. And hopefully a couple of other little bits and pieces. I have now got the rubber for the floor. You might remember I tried to make some rubber for the floor, these little gaskets that go around the edges. I tried to make them up out of some old tractor inner tube. That didn't work. I then bought a large roll of rubber, which I brought up last weekend, and a friend of mine popped in a couple of hours later and went, "What's that for?" And I explained what it's for. He said, "I actually got two of them. I got two spares." So thank you very much to Bit of Ricky Dave for supplying them. So that solves that little problem. But there's still a few little bits and pieces I need to do in the cab. And then I think we'll start to see real progress because the bits and pieces in the cab can actually then start going back together again. A major job is putting the cab door back in. I know it seems quite silly, but it's quite heavy and it requires, it's got to be set up properly, otherwise it won't run correct in the runners. So that's a big job. Probably not going to do it this weekend. That's probably going to be a couple of weekends' time because I'm going to need to get some assistance from somebody to help me put the thing back in the cab. But anyway, sit tight, enjoy yourselves, and here we are, episode 27. I shall get started on my apples during the course of the day. I do think coffee first, though, don't you? So enjoy. Sometimes when I do an intro, I wish I had the opportunity to go back and do it again. Well, I can't because I'm at home now. But anyway, a quick point on the Routemaster sort of VRT age thing. My comment about RTs being around 10 years older than Routmasters was based on the fact that the majority of RTs appeared around the 50s and the majority of Routmasters appeared around the 60s, which is why I put a 10-year age gap on it. That isn't the case, of course, because the very first RT arrived in 1939. Do you know what? We're not far off 14 years or so, 15 years, 14, 15 years for RT100. See, well done. And there's still a good few of them around, but not many in service. So anyway, shall we move on? So this weekend marked the 70th anniversary of the first appearance of a Routemaster that took place in 1954, Routemaster 1. So obviously, why not mark it with a special event over 2 days? And it was apparently a fantastic event. But I was stuck up here in the barn. So 2 Routemasters from the barn left. This is Mark Davis's RM158, a former Walthamstow bus. And Peter Figg's 1804 left the barn, so left me all on my own, but I'm grown up now. I'm quite happy with scary things. In 1994, to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Routemaster, I was one of the organisers. So here's a picture of my good friend Jane Hart, myself and Graham Lunn, who helped organise the event at the Royal Victoria Docks. And it's kind of grown from there. But anyway, well done for those guys and girls who organised Routemaster 70, because I know how difficult it is, having had a go at it myself. So, yeah, well done, everyone. But you didn't come here for Routemasters, did you? Okay, well, maybe you did as well. Route Masters are quite decent buses. Certainly, from a restoration point of view, it's easier on a Route Master than it is on an RT. These do pose loads of challenges, and I know I've said that before. However, positively, here is the floor of the RT, partly rubbed down, cleaned off as best as possible. The edge strips, those rubber bits, are all now removed, and what I now need to start doing is layering some paint onto the floor. That does pose a problem though. Right, so there you go. Coat of paint on the side, coat of paint on the floor. First coat this was, I did actually film me spraying in there, but it didn't come out too well. You've got to be careful with the camera. Although, as you can see, as you can see, I keep saying that, don't I? On that back wall, I've got masking paper, and you notice there isn't a huge amount of brown overspray on it. There isn't a lot of overspray if you do it relatively properly, but even so, I didn't want it all over the camera. So here is the cab with the first coat of paint on the floor. Now, like I said just now, this poses a problem. Even though it's nice and warm and the paint goes off really quick, you don't want to be clambering over this, and you certainly don't want anything falling on it like a, I don't know, screwdriver or something like that. So working around it, you've got to be very careful until it's hardened off. Otherwise, you're going to be rubbing the damn thing down again, and you're going to have to go through this whole process. And I really need to sort of draw a line under this spraying in the cab business. So anyway, what else can I do? Now there's a point. I happen to have some buses in the barn, which are mine. This one is Titan 890, which is a particular favourite of mine. Well, I had a number of Titans many years back, but this one has survived, and I spent a few bob doing it up. It's quite a nice bus, actually. It drives nicely, but unfortunately she's got a bit of park-up disease. Sadly, you park a modern bus up. Well, I say modern. It's not really modern, is it? But you know what I mean. You park one of these buses up, and they start to develop little problems whilst parked. But this one and Metro 2, which you'll see in a moment, got a little bit grubby. So I decided to wash them down inside the shed. You actually notice, it was only afterwards, once all the water had dried off it, that window, the second window bay, you notice it's got like that horrible film on it. Well, that's actually the dirt. You can see how much dirt was on there. A lot of it has been generated by me when I've been rubbing down inside the barn, and obviously, as you've seen, if you may have seen the picture of the door that had been in there for about 25 years, just sitting up against the side of the shed, absolutely covered in dust, and that's just general dust that gets into the barn. But there we go. So looking a little bit cleaner than what it was before all the Route Masters left. So having washed my two buses in the barn, I decided it was time to put some of this stuff back together again. This is the cab heater, which I did, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, so the paint's well hardened off on it. So the first thing to do, before I put it back, I wanted to test to see if it worked. What I'm doing is a Heath Robinson test here. I mentioned that man before. No, man, he's a Harrow resident, or used to be. So what I've done is I've applied a bit of power to the heater to make sure it works before I even start to strip it back down again or get all this masking tape and everything off of it. Now, you will notice that this gets a bit sort of more silvery later on in some of my other pictures. I wasn't very happy with the that off-grey colour, which so I got the Hammerite out and sprayed it with Hammerite. I haven't bothered you with that. But yeah, two little fans. There's an impeller on the back, which I forgot about, which is why when I first put power to it, the thing wouldn't work because the impeller was sitting on the board, so it wouldn't work. So basically what it is a simple design. You've got a fan at one end which blows heat into the cab through that little grill that's got on the right hand side of the shot, and this silver panel here is for the driver's demister, and the demister's about sort of 2/3 of the way up the windscreen. It's a little fixed bar, so the top part of the windscreen gets a little bit of air, and the driver's foot gets a little bit of air, although, be honest with you, they're quite drafty RTs, and you know what, with the poor insulation in the cab, you probably get more heat from the side wall of the RT where the engine is than you do from this thing. So anyway, here I am putting this heater back together again. The idea being, as I said in the earlier intro, I didn't want to do anything in the cab, but this sort of stuff is putting stuff back together again is speeds up the process of sticking it back. Now you may notice I made an error here if you actually know what an RT sort of cab heater looks like. So I tried to put these clips back on and they went back on really easy. There's supposed to be a guardrail around the outside of that, and I put the whole thing back together again and then thought, doesn't look right, Dean. No, doesn't look right. There's something wrong. There's a thing missing. As a result of which, off I go, and abracadabra, in any second, you will see I'm back at it again. Now notice it's gone nice and silver now. Look, this is after I got the Hammerite out and sprayed it with Hammerite. So there, found it. All the bits I put to one side of the shed, so everything was grouped in an area, and I just completely forgot. When I picked it up, I completely forgot about it. So now this turned out to be a bit more difficult than I thought. Putting it back on, it wouldn't sit in that little row at the bottom. Luckily I can speed this footage up so you don't have to see me trying to work out how the hell does it fit. But yeah, same brown as I used on the cab, and I sprayed this a while back so I can be a little bit clumsy with it, as it were. So look, guardrail in place, little lid on the top. All I've got to do is put those clips back and it's job finished. So having tested it and now put it back together again, the only thing I will need to do at some point is to put the heater water pipes back on. So I've managed to get some rubber hose for that, and I also need to get a little bit of piping to connect up the driver's demist. So there you go, that's that little job finished. Okay, so here's another thing that I need to put back together again, and this is the air intake which sits in the driver's cab. It supplies air for at least 3 functions. One is the gearbox, another one is the brake system, and a small amount of air for the automatic lubricator, which sprays oil, whatever, around the chassis of the bus. A clever little device that I know I've showed you before. So this is the air intake, and it is absolutely beautiful. I mean, compared to the sort of stuff we put on modern buses, this is gorgeous. As you can see, this lovely brass, and it cleaned and polished up beautifully. Although this is its second time round. I probably shouldn't say this really, but going back, bearing in mind I've had this bus nearly 40 years now, going back about 38 years, my then girlfriend Stephanie was really into this. And she was very supportive and used to turn up. We were down at Orpington at the time, where the current Go-Ahead base is now. And Stephanie and I used to pop down there and do bits and pieces on the bus. But the problem was, we were living in East London and we had to traipse our way all the way down to Victoria and then get the train down to Bromley South and then the 261 bus, which was a Titan, down to Orpington. As a result of which, I used to take stuff home with me. And this was one of the things that we took home. So we took it off the bus, large spanner, a few bolts and things, and took it home. I paint stripped it and spent ages putting various coats of paint. I've just noticed I've got a fingerprint on that. Look, oh, never mind. Okay. Anyway, I'll sort that out this weekend. So, anyway, over a period of time, I used to take bits not only home, but I used to take them from home to work at London Underground. I did a load of stuff, like my Rexine panels were all done on London Underground. I mean, what else do you do on a Sunday afternoon when nothing's really happening? So thanks London Underground for helping restore my RT. So, back to this. I put this, I took it home, paint stripped it, painted it, and it was beautiful. I was really pleased. Popped it in the oven to warm it up a little bit to get the paint to harden off. It was winter, so yeah, don't worry, it doesn't involve setting the place on fire. So let it cool down. I was so pleased with it, I thought I'll show it to Stephanie as soon as she gets home. Regretfully, I was on early turn at work, so I took the thing to bed with me, and I placed it on the end of the bed on top of the duvet cover, and I thought when Steph gets home I'll show it to her. So I popped, so I say, unfortunately fell asleep. And after about, I don't know, an hour or so, I was woken up by a loud scream and a thump, and to see Stephanie hopping around the bedroom using a lot of foul letter words. Unfortunately, this thing, she grabbed hold of the duvet, it had rolled off the duvet, landed perfectly on her toe. Yeah, she weren't very happy with me. We spent the night in Whips Cross Hospital having her foot x-rayed. Oh, well, never mind. So, there's a little bit of history for this. So, what I'm doing now is I've put the lid back on. And this is this little filter, a brand new one I've found from somewhere. I can't remember where I got that from now. So yeah, so there is the air intake. So all I've got to do now is to pop the lid back on. Voila. And then the second thing I've got to do is put that mounting bracket back onto it. So I'm really quite pleased with that. I think that's come up really nice now. But that'll be ready to go back in probably this weekend. Try and get the holes lined up, Dean. There you go. You get the whole line up. There's a simple little thing. Yeah, lovely a great piece of craftsmanship. So I'll let this roll off without any chat about me injuring people, like ex-girlfriends and stuff like that. She didn't talk to me for a while after. I really can't understand why. Yeah. So right, all I've got to do now is fit this bracket, which thankfully I can do on fast forward, so you don't have to sit there and see me fiddling around with the thing for too long. So this is now complete. So it's a little job that can go back on the shelf, ready to be fitted probably this weekend. So yeah, quite pleased with that now. So it's come out really nice. There you go. So end of that little chapter. Right, so no peace for the wicked. Here's a little bit of cleaning that I had to do. This is the blind, the blind that sits in the cab behind the driver. It's designed to stop the light from inside the bus peering through. Drivers did tend to leave them down all the time. It's a bit of a shame because as a young lad I used to love to sit down on that seat and watch the driver driving the bus. But anyway, this one's in really good condition, and I don't know why. I might have got hold of it at a rally or something like that, but other than it being coated in a load of dust before I did this, and I'm wondering if it's leather as well. If it is, I might try and get some leather restorer just to make it come up even nicer. But that is in pretty good condition for one of those blinds. A lot of them just fall apart. So there we are. There's the driver's cab blind. Okay, so Sunday arrived and the paint had hardened off sufficiently for me to be able to work near it without the risk of any sort of damage to the paint itself. Well, it's hopefully not. Rather than me climbing in the cab, you notice I put a little bit of paper on there just to protect the floor. This piece of wood that I'm putting back, I actually made that out of an old piece of wood that I found laying around in the barn. What it does is it holds the holder for the fire extinguisher. It's amazing you have to have a holder for the holder, but anyway, that's typical London transport for you, isn't it? These two screws, you notice the bottom one is sitting proud, they're basically, they go through into behind this panel, and I couldn't quite get, you can see that, look, it's just loose. So I couldn't quite get the nut on there easily. That was a real horrible job. But anyway, let's move on to the cab door. I tend to be a bit fussy. I wasn't happy with the bottom of this panel. It had gone a little bit sort of pear, basically. There was a few marks on it. So while I had the green paint out, I thought, oh, I'll spray that green. So I rubbed it down, and it was nice and sunny at the time. You know what's going to happen now when I mention the sun's out. So I popped it outside after it had sort of hardened off a little bit. But I thought the sun will do really good on this. It'll bake it on beautifully. So I carried on with some other stuff in the shed, and then I heard the sound, the pitter-patter of rain on the top of the shed. And yeah, it's been ruined. So I'm going to have to do it again next week. Oh, whenever I get the green paint out. That poor door, has had so many mini disasters. But it's not looking too bad, I must admit. Looking like that, it looks fine. But it's pity that, you know, an hour or so afterwards, it got ruined with the rain. Okay, so here's a couple of other bits. So this is the valance panel that sits in the cab. This is actually, I know it don't look right, it's the right way up. The bottom I've sprayed black because it sits under the floor, and then the top at the floor line is brown because then that's visible. Well, certainly the side to the right is well visible, and maybe partly part of the corner, but where that grille is and then the little side lamp, which you can just see there, that's all hidden from view. You can't see that. So that doesn't look too bad. And this now is the other side of it in green. So I took that side light off probably a couple of months back now, and restored that. I've sprayed the inside, as you can see, rewired the little bulb holder in there, so the wires are all ready now to be poked through into the cab once this thing goes back. So I'm quite pleased with that, to be quite honest with you. Oh, quickly, I will add that this is not the final top coat, because you may notice a little bit dull. It's not the final top coat. This is going to be, the bus will have to be resprayed at some point in the future. But I like to get the paint underneath the beading as best as possible, because it avoids the paint cracking away from the beading. Hence the reason why I've done these light coats. But the interior, the other side of it, I've done to final finish. Okay, so let's wrap with this. This is the final thing that I did on Sunday afternoon. I put this back together again. This is the original tax disc that London Country put, the very last one they put in the RT when it was being used as a driver trainer. It came out in service in 1977, but for some reason it still continued to have its O license in the window. And I know I commented on when I did the 6-month review look back previous episode, you know where it is, on the fact that somebody had to sit and write out those PSV licenses. That must have been a real job, and you make a mistake and you got to start all over again. But what a beautiful little job. So there we go. Right, so it's time for me to go now. So thanks very much for watching, and remember, don't take large lumps of metal to bed with you, because you may upset your girlfriend or your partner or whatever. So yeah, lesson learned there. So thanks very much everyone for putting up with me for, well, getting on for 22 minutes now. Looking forward to doing next week's one. Here's some more that, if you haven't had enough of this one, that you can look back at.